Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Dan Wickline Show. I am your host, Larry Millman, and I was born in Los Angeles because I wanted to be near my mother. All right, so today we are going to have a guest with us. Now, before I bring on our guest, I should give you the lineup for the rest of the week. Tomorrow, we will be talking about and spoiling the new movie Venom, Let There Be Carnage. I got to see that yesterday, and we will talk about everything that happens in the movie, including that very interesting post-credit scene. So if you've seen it and want to talk about it, join me tomorrow. If not, come talk about it anyway. And then on Thursday, we will be talking about the season finale of Marvel's What If, which should be really interesting. And at some point, we'll talk about the new rumors about a possible Daredevil series in the works for Disney Plus. So that'll probably come up tomorrow, and the rumors on that and how there might just be something to those. So that's going to be the lineup for this week. But we're going to kick today off by bringing in our guest. He is, he started his career in 2003 with his first graphic novel, Cyclone Bill and the Tall Tales. He is the artist and writer for Beardo, a daily slice of life strip about juggling being an adult and being an artist. And he is the writer-artist of Touching Evil, which has 2 volumes out now and a Kickstarter involving the 3rd volume. So let's bring in writer, artist, musician, Dan Dougherty.
Hey, Dan.
How you doing, Dan?
Good to see you, Dan.
So I had a chance to sit down and read both Volume 1 and Volume 2 over yesterday and today. That's a deep story, man. That is.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Volume 3 wraps it up.
Yes, it's always been intended to be this trilogy when I first started doing it, and I've been incredibly grateful and lucky to have the kind of fan base that made this happen. But yeah, it takes everything from 1 and 2 and concludes the story of the principal characters, Ada Mansfield and her son Oliver.
Okay, I have a lot of questions.
Yeah, lay it on me.
Let's start with And it's the question every writer hates. I know I hate when I get it, but it's actually a really good question, is where did this idea come from? What was the machinations that started this?
I think too much Twilight Zone when I was a child. I think I watched way too much Twilight Zone. I've always really liked, just in general, the idea of like psychological horror, like where the evil or the villain or the whatever the bad is not necessarily a monster, but it's something that is within the capacity of like a human being. And I've been stewing on this idea for a really long time about the nature of like what is good and what is evil, and how is that a hard line that we draw there between like a black and white situation, or is it shades of gray? And I never really knew what to do with that until I thought of it as like a curse, because it is kind of a morality in a way is kind of a curse in general. Like it's like when you have a belief system or you believe in something, it can be torturous because the world doesn't operate by everyone's same belief system. Like there's so much range in the way we conduct our lives, and what's right to one person is wrong to another. So it's like, this is kind of a curse, thinking about, what good and bad is. And so it started from there, but I didn't really find my hold in it until I figured out who my main character was. And that was Ada, who's this normal, everyday single mom who's an attorney. And then she gets this curse and how it messes with her whole life.
Okay. Now, see, I noticed that both it's Marvin, right? Not Melvin, Marvin.
Marvin, yeah.
Marvin, who has it originally. Yeah. And then when Ada gets it, they get it because they're good. They're able to take it because they're good. But then they start using it. And is that part of the curse? Is that it basically makes you evil?
What it does for whoever has it is it puts them in a bind, because it's sort of a magnet for evil. So whether or not they want to use it, the curse is almost like a living thing. It needs to eat. It needs to eat. It needs to feed on evil people. So it's going to sort of attract them to whoever's bearing the curse, and basically puts them in a situation that tests their resolve every time. Like if they're, like, to your point, if it was somebody who was like a person who wants to go out there killing people, then of course it'd be like, yeah, this is great. Like let's run with it. But I'm the Dan band. I like that. But for Marvin and for Ada, they're both reluctant heroes. Like, they're both reluctant users of the curse. And basically, every time you see a situation where they're using it, it's kind of by last resort. So yeah, the curse is a funny thing. Like, I really like the rules of it because it really sets up a lot of fun things to play with. It's basically a curse that lets the bearer be immortal while they have it, so they can live as long as they have it. Can't be killed. And they can kill evil people with a touch of their hand, and anyone that they kill, they hear in the afterlife. So the more people in their mind, the more people they kill, the more those voices stack up in their head, the crazier it drives them. And it's pretty awful. Like, I mean, every time I tell people this, this curse, they're like, oh, it sounds like it'd be really fun. I'm like, you think that, but it's not.
Now, I notice that there's people around them who think they're using the curse for good, but they seem just as evil, like the warden.
Yeah.
Well,
I think he's a sociopath. I think my view of that character has always been, he's getting off on playing God. He's really enjoying that he can take anyone he wants in the prison where they've got Marvin, and at any given moment, if they rub him the wrong way, he can bring him into the ghost block and have Marvin do away with him. And that has always, I mean, honestly, I wish I could have written like 6 issues of him doing that, because that was so fun to write. But
yeah, that was pretty fascinating. But how does he go from doing that to actually being involved with mobsters?
Good question. Yeah, well, because when the series, like by issue 2, I think he's basically running a side hustle. He's kind of he's a corrupt warden for sure. He's got a side hustle where he is working with that guy Tony Tippin and doing perfect assassinations, like assassinations that don't look like one, where they'll bring somebody in and they'll have Marvin use the touch on them, and they'll drop dead. Every death looks natural, and there's no foul play, and they just bring the person back out in the world and dump them off somewhere, and no one's the wiser. But those are hits, and so for the warden, he's getting money on that. Like I like to imagine that if he never encountered Marvin and never had that tool at his disposal, he would have been doing some other hustle too. He would have had some other shady practice or whatever. So he's just definitely he's a corrupt person in power. I've got a lot of like corrupt, powerful people in the story. I think I have a problem with authority.
It just seems like the warden, at least from my reading, believes he's doing good because everybody who dies has to be evil to die.
He's stacked with plenty of choices, right? He's in a prison. I mean, he's
right.
All these people who probably would die. You know, not everyone, but probably most of them would. And he's I think he likes to say out loud the righteous thing to make himself sound like a hero.
Yeah.
But in my mind, I mean, you're absolutely right. Like he always comes across as like trying to embody virtue and decency and all this stuff. But in my mind, I think that's all like, if you were to peel back the curtain, he's just like getting off on this. He's just loving it, playing God.
Yeah. Cause I mean, there are other characters in here like Tippin who knows he's bad guy and he's okay with that.
Yeah.
You know, and there's other characters like that, which I find interesting. And I also find interesting that Ada is a defense attorney.
Yeah.
And I've always found defense attorneys to be kind of the willing ignorance of a defense attorney. You know, well, it's my job, you know, and it strikes me as odd that why did you choose a defense attorney to be your protagonist?
It's a good question. Partly, and to your earlier point, I get what you're saying about Nidmore, where he, compared to Tippin, thinks he's very much a righteous person, right? Everything he's doing can be excused because he's doing, you know, the work of good. But with Ada, part of it was in service of the story to get her to the prison. Some of it was just to get her there. But another thing too was, I mean, I put her in a situation that I kind of fleshed out as her backstory kind of comes into play more as the story develops. And she's someone who started off trying to represent the underprivileged and the downtrodden with her career as an attorney, but there wasn't as much money in it. And as a single mom, that's always the driving force of her. Like, is that at the end of the day, I'm the only one putting food on the table for my kid. So yeah, it's sort of like a death by a thousand cuts thing where, you know, I like to think of her as, when she's a young person in the story, as very full of like a sense of like idealism. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, gradually that's what adulthood does, right? Chips away at that until one day you realize you're not where you thought you'd be. That she's 32 when the story begins, and she definitely didn't think she was going to be defending scumbags who are rich, you know, for that easy payday. Right. So yeah, I think that in a way it's like it's almost like a Christmas Carol, you know, with Scrooge. And she's not a Scrooge character, but she's definitely someone who's lost her way. And then all of a sudden this curse comes to slap her in the face and make her realize, in a way, like, you know, this life you've led where you can live in shades of gray is going to be no more. Now you're in a very black and white world.
Now, I'm curious when you sat down to write this. As a writer myself, I have done mysteries and I've done big psychological stuff. And where I know when I first started writing, I always thought, well, you have to really plot all this out and plan it all out so it all comes together. And then the practicality of actually sitting down to write, I've found that it's usually more by the seat of your pants, and you're finding things as you go and then making little tweaks back here as oh, hey, that's a great idea. I can fix this back here. And how did you approach this? You're doing what? Each issue is like 6 books?
7, yeah.
Each volume is 7 books.
Yeah.
So this is 21 chapters.
Yep.
In the 3 volumes. How much did you plan this out from the beginning over the 21 chapters?
That's a really good question, because I think if I had all the unlimited resources and everything to make all 21 issues back when I first started it, it would have, I think, a very different ending, because where my head was at with the story is different than where my head's at now with it. There were some things that I always knew I wanted to do with it. Like, I knew my ending of the first volume before I started it. I knew where I wanted Ada to be and what I wanted to have happen to her at the end of that first volume, 100%. How I got there, though, I mean, I initially thought it'd be like 5 issues, and then I realized, wow, I got a lot of story that I want to tell. And then, it became 7, and then 7 became the blueprint for the remaining 2 books. But I think the broad strokes of what the story was in my mind have always been there, but the details have changed a lot. I thought certain aspects, to be honest, one thing I thought I would do more of when I was first writing it was I thought I'd do more of the courtroom stuff. And then I realized that's super boring in a comic. I'm like, at least for me, like I couldn't write it in a way. I'm not Aaron Sorkin. I can't make it that interesting. It was very, very dry. I'm like, this is getting too nitpicky on its small detail. This story works best when you have broad stroke stuff, like bigger pieces. So for me, it's changed a lot in that sense. But I will say the big landmark pieces of the story have not changed, which I'm very proud of. I'm glad that those paid off the way I thought they would in times where I was like, well, is this going to work or not? And then I'm like, oh, cool, we got here,
Well, you're not the first person to realize that courtroom scenes are actually boring in comics. I realized one point that Daredevil, of course, Matt Murdock, in the first 24 issues, I believe, he's in court in 5 panels.
Yeah. Because nobody wants to write that stuff. I mean, it's tough to act it out even. I mean, it's interesting if you can make it work on TV or film, but you've got to have an actor and you've got to have conversational stuff, and you got to lay out a lot of information. And it's like in a comic, you don't have the space for that, or the patience for that. People want to, I get accused even now of you have too much story, and I don't have all that stuff. You don't have the space for that. I don't have. I basically pared it down to its essence, but I still have people going like, "Man, there's a lot of stuff going on here." And I'm like, "Yeah, I agree, but it is 21 issues, so cut me some slack."
Just on a side note, I recently found out that A.C. Bradley, the writer of the new Marvel What If series, one of the storylines she pitched not once but twice was she wanted to do a Steve Rogers as president What If, but it would be an homage to the West Wing, and there'd be walk and talks, and there'd be analogies for that. And she said she realized now why they rejected it twice, because it's an action series and you can't really do in a half hour a decent, she said, because it would be such a dialogue heavy thing as an homage to West Wing, So. You can't pull that off. Again, none of us are Aaron Sorkin. Yeah, true. Oh, as if, if only. Jamal Flores says, "What? Try? Not like Ace Attorney, the video game." Is there really an attorney
Is
video
that
game?
really a thing? Is he making that up? Or?
I don't know, but it could be.
That's awesome. I'd play that.
Kyle says he is Aaron Sorkin. Okay. So I am curious on interesting choice that when you have Brody chop off her finger, he originally takes 2 and leaves 1 behind. Was that mainly, was there something to that? Did you have another plan? Or was that so she could reattach it later and show that part of the gift?
It was that. It was I was struggling with, that kind of gives you an idea of how far I scripted out before I drew it, because I needed some things set up so that I can pay them off later. That's actually one of my things that I'm proudest of with the series, is that I definitely took the time to set certain things up so that they are rewarding later for the reader. Like, why did this happen? Oh, it's because of that. And so for me, the problem approaching it from like a purely like problem solving standpoint was like, how do you tell somebody that you're cursed with this thing where you can kill anyone with a touch of your hand and you're immortal? Like, how do you? They're gonna think you're crazy, right? Yeah. So if you can show them by going like, hey, watch this, I can put my finger back on because it got chopped off earlier, and watch this, it just attaches when I put it back onto the nub of my hand. Then I don't have to do all that explaining it. Like, I don't have to have this whole like, she's trying to convince her son and her friend Nick that this is real. We just go, oh shit, this is real, and then that was it. But it was purely, because if not, I would have had him just cut off the one finger and just leave. But it was purely a plot device that helped make that quicker.
Jamal says, yes, it's an extremely popular game series from Japan. It's a whole franchise.
Wow. I'm in the wrong country. I should be in Japan.
I know.
Playing lawyer video games.
I don't know. Maybe you ought to get this translated to Japanese and sent over there.
I've made a lot of mistakes, and that's one of them. I didn't tap that market, the Japanese video game lawyer market.
There you go. Just add the deleted scenes and the lawyer stuff, and then send it over to Japan. They'll do great.
Yeah.
How do you approach an issue? As the writer and artist, on a story like this, it seems like you really do need to script it out. I know a lot of artists who will draw the story because they've got it in their head, and then they'll write it. Did you actually script it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Heavily, yeah. I have to. Like, I can't. First of all, I have to write everything down in general, because otherwise I forget things. Like, I have a lot of moving parts at this point with 21 issues, and so there's times where I forget like a character's first name because I've been referring to them as their last name the whole time. I'm like, did I ever made that mistake where like I accidentally renamed them within the story? So I write everything down in general, but I really have to script this one pretty tight because of the nature of what I'm trying to pull off with it, which is, again, like what you said, or what I said before, with setting things up at certain points in the story so that they will pay off in later points, which I know is a pretty standard thing to do. But with this book in particular, I need to have a map. I'm like Charlie in It's Always Sunny with like the strings everywhere and all the threads, and it's brutal sometimes because I'm like, shoot, did I forget something? But I usually, I have an A plot, B plot, C plot kind of thing, and I try to weave them so that I don't spend too much time on one area. I just cover what I need to get out, and then move on. And I'm a big fan of like a good transition. So that's like trying to find those narrative threads that seamlessly bring you to the next thing without you having to kind of like stop and start is important to me. Plus, I give myself more space in these books too. They're usually 32 pages, so they're kind of long. But I will say that one thing though is that when I do start drawing it, I do change things sometimes. Like but I usually change things to make them more economical. Like I don't try to add, I try to subtract. Like I think one of my better hats that I wear is actually my editor hat. I know that might sound contrary to someone who's making 21 issues and 32 pages each, but I cut a lot of stuff out. Like, so, it hopefully is a little bit more streamlined. It would have been much longer.
You said you have an A plot, a B plot, and a C plot. I'm sure you go further down the alphabet.
Yeah.
Because I'm just thinking, let's see, you got Ollie's storyline, you've got Brody's storyline where he's out for doing his thing. Mm-hmm. You got Pippin and the warden. You've got Ada's story going on with her current boss, and then you've got her past going on. You got a lot of hats or a lot of plate spinning in this series.
Yeah, and I it's not the way I normally write either. Like I feel like this is the one time that I've written this way where because I'm just really enthusiastic about all the plots. Like I really do feel that they all matter and they all tie in. There was a lot of stuff that I wanted to do that I had to cut. So this is the best stuff. And it's like, it's crazy that it's this many things, but they all eventually intertwine and then become, you arrive at your point,
Yeah. I don't know how it's going to tie back around, but I'm really curious how Ollie's father plays into this.
Yeah. So you read up to volume 2, right?
Yes, I had to skim a little bit because I didn't have a lot of time. But
I'm amazed you read that much of it because I think you only got the links not too long ago. So thanks for reading that much of it.
No problem. It's a good story. I really got into it, and had I had more time, I would have read it a lot closer. And now I want to know. I mean, I've got questions going into volume 3 now. Well, the finger didn't work at the end. Does that mean that she did what was looking like she was going to do to save with Ollie? I mean, is that why yeah.
I'm not going to tell you, but that's the question you're supposed to ask. You got the question right.
Yeah. I'm definitely looking forward to volume 3 now because I want to know what the hell is happening.
Yeah, and it's
good storytelling. Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, it's honestly, in the whole premise of 3 is really like it's up a notch in terms of intensity because I hate when stories keep promising that they're going to do this crazy big thing that they're going to wow you with something. Like TV shows do this, comics do this, but they're like, you're not going to believe what happens at the end of this, and then what happens at the end of it is they killed off some ancillary character, and it really feels like a cheat in a way, because they didn't want to back up what they were saying. And I always intended for this thing to happen where the situation you described at the end of volume 2 leaves it's an either or, it's like, it's either this happens or this happens. Either this character dies or this character dies. And they both matter. They're both characters that you care about. So, what's left in volume 3 is revenge. And that's what I really am excited about. Cause it's a part of the evil narrative that doesn't really get explored. Like what vengeance can do to people, like how your quest for like retribution or like payback can change you. And how dark it can be. And so for the characters that are remaining, they're dealing with that. And again, a lot of long form character development pays off in volume 3. Like a lot of stuff that Brody's been building towards pays off. A lot of stuff with the other main characters. I won't say who makes it, but it's all been, kind of leading to that, which I'm really proud of because I felt like standalone, those 2 books still work, volume 1 and 2, as just, good season of Touching Evil, but volume 3 is really where like you get the complete picture.
All right, we're about halfway, so let's go ahead and take a break, and then we will come back because I want to talk to you about the where the souls go, and a few other questions about that. So let's go ahead and take a quick break, and we'll be back with Dan Dougherty in just a moment.
Awesome.
There's something for every imagination at your local comic shop. Visit ComicShopLocator.com to find a store near you.
Hey, welcome back, everyone, to the Dan Wickline Show. Today we are joined by writer, artist, and musician Dan Dougherty of Beardo Comics, who is currently doing a Kickstarter for the third volume of Touching Evil. So let's bring Dan back in. And trying to be a good interviewer here. I not only did I read the comics, but I read both about the author sections in the trades. And I noticed two things. One, that between Volume 1 and Volume 2, you gained an Elliot.
Did.
So is there a third child for the third?
God, no. In fact, I've got one right here trying to get my attention, but I'm like, not right now.
And then no mention in the second book of On the Off Chance.
Oh, yeah, band broke up. But I have a band right now that is some of the people from that and some new people, and it's really fun. In fact, I'm putting out another album. Actually, it might be soon. It's done. It's just being mastered. So we made one album called Bad Ideas, which I kickstarted on vinyl, and that worked out really well. And then the second album, Fun Times Ahead, is recorded. It's just being mixed and mastered right now. So still making music, just with different. I just went with Dan Dougherty. I'm sick of band names. I'm so tired of naming a band, buying all this merchandise, and then somebody leaves or breaks up, and then you're stuck with 70 T-shirts that you don't want anymore. Painful memories that you got to wear.
There you go. Yeah. Also, as a fellow musician, I get it. So.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Absolutely. So, all right, let's get back to Touching Evil. I wanted to talk about what happens after they're touched. Where did the idea of, the idea that they can hear the people that they touch, that didn't seem, that seems like something ground we've traveled before, but you do a neat spin on it where they can actually interact within this space.
Yeah.
What's going on there? How did that come about? And we got a whole complete another subplot going on inside of this poor woman's head. So where did that all come from?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because it's one of the things I just thought would be really fun to play with. I like coming up with stuff that is, toys that I could play with potentially for the future of the series. But with that one, it served a couple purposes for me. One, it does have, I don't get religious in the series ever, but I do like to think about, what happens beyond death, right? Like do we just die? And this series obviously presumes that our souls exist beyond our bodies. It does not attribute it to any particular religion or anything, and I really don't want to get in that territory at all. But I do like this idea of like, what is the soul, and what is its value? And when you have that space, which I just call it the void I've never actually said it in the comic, but in my mind it's the void. It's a space in their head where they can hear all the dead that they killed. It serves a bunch of different purposes. One is obviously to add a little bit of a consequence to the curse bearer, because the more they kill, the more these souls stack up, and it really does kind of weigh on them psychologically. They can kind of hear like a faint rumbling of these dead people in their head. And then with the people who died, a lot of the characters I end up killing in the series, you don't really know a whole lot about them. You meet them at the moment of death,
right?
And so to make it less cheap, like I didn't want it to be like a a first person shooter game where you're just racking up bodies. Like I wanted it to be like, this is supposed to mean something. It's supposed to be like a reason behind that. So for them, it's a lot of it is chaos in there at first, because they're all pretty awful people, and they're realizing that they're trying to hurt each other, and they're all dead. Like you can't kill something or hurt something that's already dead. But what some of them start to wonder and theorize is this purgatory? Like, is this that middle space between life and whatever the afterlife is, where they maybe have a shot at righting the ship of their morality, And so it becomes a really fun thing to play with, and I weave in and out of it when I need to. But I also like it because it's got one more purpose, which is that it gives the curse bearer an opportunity to go in there and actually potentially extract information from them. So
I was curious about the redemption question, because is it Vincent, the lawyer? Yeah. Because Vincent seems to be the most morally interesting character, in that he starts off pure enough or good enough that the touch doesn't affect him, but knowledge of the touch and desire to save himself, corrupts him.
Yeah.
And then in there, though, he starts trying to help Ada again.
Yeah.
It almost seems like there's a redemption arc for him. And see, those are some of the questions I came out of with, like, what happened to Marvin's collection when he passed the curse on? And then, is there a way out of there if you redeem yourself? So if those are the questions you want readers to ask, success.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. I don't like spelling things out for people. I mean, I don't like when a story has to tell me what it's doing. So I'm glad that your read on it is perfect. That's exactly it. I mean, Vincent definitely is one of the most interesting characters to me because of, the arc that we see him go through of, good to bad to good again in a way. He's kind of like part of the thesis of the whole book, like whatever you want to get out of it. Like I've got my long pitches of Touching Evil and my short pitches, and my shortest pitch is 2 words. People change. And that's what the book really explores a lot. People going, in the right direction, in the wrong direction, and what the consequences of all that are. But he's definitely like one of my favorite characters.
Okay. So that is something you address in the 3rd issue?
Yes.
In the 3rd volume?
Yeah, definitely.
Because if not, I'd be like, afterwards going, Dan, hello, Dan. I need some answers here. All right. Why do animals react the way they do?
Good question. It's fun. Like first of all, it's again, like some of this stuff is purely because it's super fun to have like a little extra sense of menace and dread to what's going on. But it's because really it's like, how like they say that dogs and cats and like certain animals, they just have an instinct or they almost like a sense. Some people ascribe like almost like an extra sense that animals have about what's good and bad. And for me, like when Ada's got this curse, it's like she's a house for evil. She's basically every one of those souls is just kind of sitting up there in some locked door of her mind. But like the dog, for example, Peaches, is like, whoa, you are ripe with evil right now. You are like, you've got all these bodies on you. You're scaring bejesus out of me. Get away from me. And it just adds that extra visceral thing to this thing, because what's been tough about doing a book that doesn't have like there's not like a visual representation of it. Doesn't like her hand glows or something, or she's got some sort of weird physical power that you can see. It's all kind of like how the world around it reacts to her, and then also how that void presents itself. So like stuff like dogs getting creeped out by her, and like the fish in the fish bowl kind of like go away from her, and like all the little stuff like that is just fun visual add-ons to what is this curse.
Was that a conscious decision not to give her a glowing hand or glowing eyes or some symbol of power?
Yeah.
You want it to be as mundane as possible?
I want it to be the only thing I think is interesting about it is the snap when somebody goes, like, you see the person and they're in the room that they're in with Ada, and I always usually try to do something where they're like in mid-sentence or like they're in mid-action, and she touches them. And so if they were about to complete that thought, all of a sudden they complete that thought in the void where there's nothing around except a little swath of whatever scene they were in. Like they get like a chunk of the room as like a marker of where they were, but they also get like, this giant void around them where it's like, I mean, usually they don't even believe that they're there until somebody slowly has to dawn on them. 1 second while I tell my children to stop knocking on my door.
No problem. Go ahead. So, if you're tuning in now, we are talking to Dan Dougherty of Touching Evil and Beardo Comics, and Dan is back. So,
really quick. I just said stop it.
Well, they seem to have listened.
Because I got pizza coming in. They're going to either get pizza or they're going to have broccoli. Those are the choices.
Oh man. Completely out of curiosity, when I was writing for Zenoscope, I put a cat in every book I did, and I named him what I thought was the most innocuous cat name possible, Mr. Whiskers. So every book had a Mr. Whiskers. So why Peaches?
Oh, my childhood friend had a dog named Peaches that I really liked. It's not exactly the same look of the dog, because I mean the dog passed away many years ago. So I couldn't find a photo of this dog. It wasn't my dog, but I always liked that name Peaches, and it was just reminded me of that friend, and so I used my parents' dog as the model for it, but I named it Peaches because I didn't want it to be dead on my parents' dog. Yeah,
makes sense. Yeah, I found that just about every writer I know, when they put an animal in that's going to be more than a throwaway animal, they actually name it. The name has some significance.
Yeah,
it's some pet they had, or means something.
I try to do that with a lot of the stuff too. Like, I mean, not everything. Sometimes I just pick names because of necessity. Like, I need a name for this, and what kind of guy do I think this is? But like Ada Mansfield is I can't remember what their full names were right now offhand, but the first two female attorneys, one was named Ada something and one was something Mansfield. So I took the two and I put them together.
Oh, nice.
And I thought it was kind of funny that Mansfield was the name of one of the first female attorneys. So I was like, Mansfield? That's kind of on the nose, but okay. But I liked it, and I'm like, I ran with it, and I still like it. I think it plays well for her.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I tend to whenever I create a detective character, I borrow the name of an author who does detective series.
Yeah.
So Doyle, Stout, stuff like that.
Sure.
Kyle's now disturbed because he thought for sure the name was a reference to the presidents of the United States of America and their song Peaches.
No. Sorry, Kyle. We can pretend that's the case.
Yeah. You have to put another dog in there named Lump or something,
Kyle got to have his name be in Floppy Cop, a book that I write. He demanded that a character who was named Barnaby, who is a ridiculous cop, he's like, you don't have a first name for him yet, do you? I'm like, no. He's like, I would love it if it was Kyle. And so we went with Kyle.
Nice. So now Floppy Cop, you did that with Seth, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Cool. So, all right. So let's talk about the Kickstarter itself. Now, It's already launched, I take it, because I see Kyle's put a link to it in our chat.
Mm-hmm.
How long is this going on for?
31 days. I went, I think it lands on the 5th of November, which is Remember. But also is a Friday, I believe. So look at my calendar. Yeah, it's a Friday. So I was like, that's a perfect spot to end it at. And I wanted to have it obviously during October. It's a, spooky month. I've set some of volume 2 is set during Halloween. So volume 3 obviously is not, but it's still got a lot of that kind of horrific stuff. And it'll be 31 days. And we're already doing really well. I'm really very pleased so far with today and the launch of it.
Excellent. Now, what are some of the rewards that people can get? Because that's always a big thing. It's like, well, I can get a copy of the book and a print and a this and a that. So what are some of the things that people can look forward to if they back it?
Yeah. Well, obviously, like you said, the book, which what I do with my books is I also have a thank you page in there for everyone who backed the Kickstarter. And so you get your name in the thank you section. That also comes with a PDF and then any of the stretch goal stuff that we unlock if you're a physical backer. Since we're in volume 3 of this, it's kind of like I have an abundance of riches as far as like what people can get if they're new to the campaign. Obviously, they have a lot to choose from. If they're previous backers from the other ones, there still is new stuff. But there's a lot of add-ons. So basically, aside from the book, you can get the slipcase that would collect all 3 volumes in a really nice display. That piece is available as an add-on, or there's a tier where you can actually get all 3 volumes and the slipcase as one thing. I have the tarot deck actually that came from the previous campaign. I now have it, so it's not even about kickstarting it. It's a real physical thing, and it's one of those things too that I think got swept under the rug a little bit with COVID, because I literally got the tarot decks as COVID was starting. So like nobody got to hear about these tarot decks except for the people who ordered it in the previous campaign, which was a decent amount, but wasn't a lot of people. And so I've got that. I've got original pages of the final issue is one I'm very proud of. Mm-hmm. I did the first 7 issues traditionally, and then from 8 to 20, I switched over to digital because it was just a matter of convenience. But for 21, for the finale, I'm bringing it back to where it began, and I'm doing the 32 pages that are of issue 21, the final chapter, traditionally, and people can actually buy a tier where you can get one of those pages at random and your book. So you can actually have an original page of the final issue of the trilogy. And then if you see right there, actually, there's the remarked books, which I had done. It was a pretty sought after thing in the previous campaign where I do a full color illustration on page 1 of the book. So like you get an original piece of art of whatever in Touching Evil theme. I picked the whatever it is, but you get that level of rendering on your first page of the book, so it becomes a really custom piece.
Nice.
Yeah, I was really proud of it. It was cool because I had I think I had like 40 backers for the last one that did that, and so it was a lot of work, but it was really fun. And they felt really special. Like they felt like, something they just had a lot more of my, effort into it. There's what's cool you got right there. The pinup gallery is pretty awesome this time around. I've always had great pinup gallery artists, and I wanted to see who I could get for this last one that I haven't gotten yet. And so I can't show some of them. I put examples of their art because I didn't want to show the pinup because it gave away some of the plot. But Corinne Roberts did that one piece on the left there that will be featured in the book, which I love that piece. Corinne just absolutely nailed it. Seth the Moose, who my friend and frequent collaborator on Floppy Cop, he will be doing a piece. He actually did his is done too, but I can't show it. Gene Ha, which I'm again immensely proud of that he would be willing to do that, as I am with Kaylin Smith and Tony Moy. These are all artists that they're friends of mine, but even if they weren't, I would just be following their art till the day I die. So like to have their take on Touching Evil is really cool. And then there's a ton of different other add-ons. Like you can get challenge coins, you can get pins, you can get retail levels where you can actually see. You can get 5 copies, I think, at about 50% of the cost. There's basically something for everybody in here. And whether you're a new person coming into it fresh or you're someone who's been involved in the previous Kickstarters, you're going to find stuff that you're going to want, basically. Like there's something basically you can get for anybody.
And you said the tarot deck. Now that's unique art for the tarot deck, or is that from the book?
It's an actual physical tarot deck. I had a copy of it right in front of me here. I just did. I think I packed them up into my my stuff from New York. It's a 78 card deck. So all those images you see there, I have a 78 full major minor arcana deck of tarot cards that are themed from Touching Evil. So like not every card has direct tie-ins to Touching Evil, but there are several that use some of the characters or use some of the elements of the Touching Evil world. And they are printed in black and white on the inside and on the actual face of it. And then they all have that design there at the bottom right for the back of the card. And they come shrink wrapped and then put in a tuck box, a white tuck box with a resealable Touching Evil vinyl wrap. So they're really nice. Like, they've been kind of a hit at my few conventions that I've done since we returned to somewhat normal. Like I always have them on the table. Yeah. People who don't even know what the book is, they just go, "Ooh, it's a tarot deck," and they just go nuts on it. I love it.
Yeah, I'm one of those guys. I've got about 6 different tarot decks that I occasionally use just for fun.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Well, very cool.
Thanks.
Okay, so the Kickstarter's live now, and already you said it's doing pretty well.
We're close to hitting the first goal. I'm hovering just below 9K right now, and 10K is the goal. So I'd love to hit it today, and then we can start. The stretch goals is where I really want to start focusing on, not only for all of the, because I don't know how familiar people are with Kickstarters, but typically the first goal is just sort of like the bare bones needed to get something done, right? And sometimes it's even lower than that. It's like what you think you can reasonably come up with, right?
Yeah.
So there's that, but then there's a lot of stuff that I'd like to do with this. there's a lot of goals I'd like to hit, which I think would add a lot of value to the people backing it. I have a stretch goal list on there. So it starts off with some nice easy ones like digital wallpaper, all books will come signed, foil embossed cover at 16K, which I'd really like to do that again. The first one looked really cool and I embossed it in foil. The bookmark, vinyl sticker, Touching Evil mini story, that's where we start getting interesting. So like when I hit like in the 20K mark, like 22 to 30, then we start getting actual bonus comics. And I love doing that. The first campaign I did it, and it was such a huge hit, like because I did a Touching Evil Beardo crossover, which I thought was very funny. And then this time around, I'm doing a Beardo Touching Evil floppy cup crossover as the ultimate goal. It will be absolutely absurd. I'm hoping I can trick Seth into drawing some of it with me. But I also have like another little mini Touching Evil story that I want to do. So that's like the first version of the goals. And then the second one is the crossover one. But either one of them, it's going to add so much more bang for your buck for every backer, because it doesn't cost anything except, whatever your pledge was. And yeah, I would love it if we can crack all of those open, because that would make my life a lot more easy with fulfilling this. And I think it'll make everyone else a lot more rewarded for their pledge and everything.
All right. Well, we're going to have to wrap it up, but let me tell you guys, if you have not read Touching Evil, having just read the first 2 trades, this is a fantastic book. It's the writing, the art, it's all really good. It's a story that makes you want to keep reading. And, I'm, like I said, I'm going to have to go out there because now I got to know what happens. I need that 3rd volume, man. It's killing me now because I got to know what happens at the end with the finger, and oh man. So that's going to be bugging me for a while. So back this book. If there's options on there to pick up the first 2 or get the first 2 copies, do that. Dan, it was a pleasure chatting with you, and I wish you the best of luck on the Kickstarter and everything going forward, man.
Thanks, Dan. I really appreciate this. This was an absolute pleasure. So thank you.
Oh, no problem. Good luck with that. And everybody, like I said, check out the Kickstarter. It's going on right now through November 5th. So if Eternals are in the theater, then this will be wrapping up. So keep that in mind. All right. And stick around, folks. We got some great stuff coming up on the experience tonight. And I will be back in just 2 hours with Kyle to talk about comics in stores this week. So see you all later. Have a good night.